Welcome to Your Health is Wealth podcast. The podcast invites you to embrace the profound truth that your health is your wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Burke. This podcast aims to take you on a journey into the landscape of alternative medicine, integrative practices, and holistic healing options that empower you to thrive in mind, body, and spirit. Today in our segment titled
Episode 7, From Stress to Serenity, Finding Purpose and Identity Through Yoga and Meditation. In this episode, we will hear from a seasoned technology professional who dedicated 2 decades to the realms of program management, strategy, and technology leadership. Her journey is not just about her impressive career, but also about a deep-seated passion for holistic wellness that transformed her life in many ways. Amid Seattle's long, rainy, soaked months, she found herself seeking a new way to stay active and connected. It was here that she turned to yoga, a practice that was initially intimidating but ultimately transformative. As her yoga practice deepened, she discovered a powerful tool for managing stress, something that resonated deeply within her personally and professionally. Yoga became a sanctuary, a place where she could find peace amid the chaos balancing a demanding career and family life. Inspired by her own experiences in the tech world and her personal quest for balance. Hey everyone, welcome to Your Health is Wealth podcast. Today we're thrilled to introduce Shalini, a distinguished technology professional with 2 decades of experience in program management, strategy, and technology leadership. Beyond her impressive career, Shalini is deeply committed to the community service as a certified yoga instructor. She is currently pursuing certifications in health coaching and trauma-informed yoga. Over the years, she empowered over 100 individuals through yoga, pranayama, career development, and holistic wellness, and has raised more than $1,000 for local nonprofits. Her life coaching vision focuses on empowering individuals to lead lives of passion and purpose, making her a true advocate for personal and communal growth. So please welcome Shalini. It's such a pleasure to have you today. So you have 20 years of experience in technology and leadership and a passion of holistic wellness. How do you initially get involved in yoga and coaching? And what inspired this transition for you?
Thank you for having me as a guest on this podcast. And I'm super excited to share my story. I've lived in Seattle for over 21 years. And truth to be told, Seattle is beautiful, but there's 6 months of the year stuck indoors. And for me, I think I just am a person who loves physical fitness. Just sitting at home for the 6 months just was not working. And with the rain, you can't really get out and walk. And so that kind of led me to just explore various activities. So I got a gym membership. I tried Pilates. And one fine day, a friend told me, hey, do you want to join me for yoga class? And trust me, when I was going to go to that yoga class, I'd seen all the social media pictures. You see all these perfect bodies with the best poses. And the imposter syndrome in my head, I think, just kicked off because I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to this class and I'm going to feel so bad about it because I may not be able to do anything. However, I decided to go with her. And I would say that's really how this all started about 10 years ago when I went to my first class. And there was just something about it. Like when I finished my class, I felt, yes, of course, I'm not going to lie. I did fall over, right? I couldn't do all the poses perfectly, all of it. But I felt when I walked out of that class, there was something that was exciting because it challenged me. And I can draw parallels because even at work, in all of my teams, all of my projects or programs, it's always been what really puts me in that challenging space that I need to go solve. And so I think for me, yoga just resonated because after that class, I felt, yes, I couldn't do it, but I was challenged, right? It was like, okay, can I do a little better next time? That's really how it started, right? It's just really more I think within me trying to see, can I actually do this and give it a shot? And that's really how it all began. And I would say fast forward a few weeks in, there was also a pranayama class. It was actually my first class I attended about breathing. We all breathe, right? That's what we need. But I don't think we all realize what it means to consciously breathe. And for the first time, sat in the class, they talked about pranayama and just taught a few breathing techniques. I just felt that sense of calm I had never felt. And sometimes it's hard to explain things because people need to experience it. And I think for me, that's really how the whole journey of yoga started. And when I think about coaching, I would say secretly, when I was a kid, I always used to do these role plays where I was a teacher. So always wanted to be a teacher, but that quite didn't happen because obviously I am where I am. And I think when I just gone into like my tech world where I had so many folks who used to come up and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or how did you get to this? And I think coaching or even mentoring and teaching just organically started at work. And I think that was really how, yeah, the journey of coaching and my yoga journey really started. And how I think I was able to just connect that back to how I could practice at home as well, eventually.
And I think you bring up a couple of different things here. Number one, you are in the linear world, right? With the tech, it's very analytical.
Yes,
It's what the mind tries to make sense of things.
correct.
Versus yoga is more the creative. It's more the outside of the box. It's a spiritual aspect to it, which uses the other side of our brain, right? One utilizes the left, the other one utilizes the right. And so you're balancing both sides of that, which in essence, you're balancing within too. The other thing that kind of sticks out is with tech world, we're using a lot of electronics, whether it's a computer, a laptop, or PC, a laptop, your cell television, whatever it is that you're using. And so yoga pulls us away from that world. It can affect the senses when we're around it too much. If you're sitting there. And so the yoga poses help with the digestive system, moving things around and balancing that aspect too. Would you say?
Yes, absolutely. I think we all need a digital detox because we are just all with gadgets all the time, whether it's our laptop or the phone. I think, yes, absolutely. Yoga at least definitely has helped me where there's hours in the day when I just do not want to touch any gadget, when I'm in a class or I'm trying to do something. So I'm consciously putting the effort to really detox away from everything we do all the time. And I feel like our minds are overstimulated.
I agree. And with that, it could be a distraction pulling us away from self, right? That
Exactly.
sense of wholeness. And also pranayama, that's a really good tool because it's a breathing technique as you suggested, but it helps to balance the physiology. It's a tool that you can use before yoga because a lot of times I've noticed, or after yoga rather, and what I've done is an exercise routine or yoga, then pranayama to start to mellow things out, and that it's a nice lead into meditation. Is
Yes.
that how you use it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, and I think for me, it's also just even few minutes before the yoga practice, because again, monkey mind, right? We're all like always coming from some place. And then we come in and you want to sit in that environment. I just feel like you need even few minutes to connect within and just bring yourself, right? Meaning your body, your mind, everything to that one place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. The beginning, the end. Yes, absolutely.
That's great. I might try that. So you did touch on the fact that there can be a high level of stress in the tech world, right? With work. It is just with any type of work, but that can actually even be at a higher level in your corporate career. How did that stress impact you personally and professionally before you began your journey into yoga and the holistic wellness space?
That's a great point. I think one thing people really miss is when we say high stress in our career. Yes, that's one part of it. But I feel there are other aspects of our life. When I think about it as a holistic, we're all holistic beings, right? When you think about it, it's beyond just career. And now I think, just given the maturity and probably my experiences and learning now, when I sit back and think about it, I feel like, yes, I was experiencing a high level of stress, but it was not just career because I was a mom to two young kids. I had to manage the house. I had to manage career. You got to manage dropping, picking them up. So I felt like it was everything at the same time. The stress just compounded. It wasn't like just stress from work. If it was just that, maybe it wasn't that bad. But I feel like the mind was just pulled in so many directions. The stress was definitely super high. And I felt sometimes you really have to find that self care or a tool or some kind of mechanism to help ourselves. And I also feel as a woman and as Asian Indian women, that we also have all this cultural things built in us, which is you can do it all. You're women. Yes, you can do this. You got to take care of your kids. That's your highest priority. But hey, I also have a career. I also want to balance that part. I still want to grow in that. So how do you balance all of it? I think was really, now when I think about it, I feel that really what that stress was 10 years ago before I even got into yoga. If you ask me, yes, I was stressed. I would say stress at work, but I really now feel it was stress because there were so many other things. It wasn't just work, and they all relate to us because we're just holistic beings. There's everything else that impacts and feeds into one another. I think for me, that's when I realized I needed a tool. I needed some way to help myself. And I think it was the perfect timing. And I know I'll probably touch a bit upon just my spiritual and other connections, but I always feel like the universe sometimes just puts you in the right place and there's a calling. And you won't believe it. That was also the highest point of stress with the kids and work and everything else. And also the time when my friend told me, oh, you should come and try this yoga. And that was, I think, the beginning of everything, right? At least from going and finding a tool to even help myself.
It seems like that's how it usually unfolds. Is we all have a different level of breaking point depending on your personality style, but you get to that point where something's got to give. And I think that's what causes us to release control. When we're in that process of surrender, I think we open ourselves the most to things that are maybe readily available all the time, but we just don't see it for one reason or another. Do you think that with the practice of yoga and
Mhm.
pranayama, for example, let's say you have 20 things that you have to do in a week and you're trying to figure out, okay, am I going to do it this day or that day, or maybe they carry on to the next day? And maybe you don't get them done, which is pretty common these days. Do you think that you still have those 20 things, maybe even more now, but yet you have a better sense of prioritization with those things because your mind is clear?
Absolutely. I think so. I feel like, yes, if you asked me this question 10 years ago or 5 years ago, even, I probably would not know. But I feel like with just that experience and the practice, now I can actually tell you, I would, yes, if I had 10 things on my plate, I can actually say, all right, here's my bigger bucket. Here's my medium. This stuff can wait. So I just feel, yes, that clarity of thought has definitely evolved. And I feel just, yes, with yoga, meditation has really, it's just been an awesome tool to help me get there. And it's funny because when I think about it, one of my mentors used to tell me, which was every time there was a project or everybody was so stressed out, we we're all trying to get to these deadlines and do all of this. And one day I think I walked his office and I said, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. I don't know how this is going to work out. And the only thing she actually told me was, hey, guess what? 6 months from now, when you think about this, I don't think you're going to feel the same emotions. So sometimes you just need to step back and look at that bigger picture. Right? Of course, that does not mean you don't do your duty. Like you still have to do what you're responsible for, but you don't control all the actions. And I feel a lot of our stress and anxiety also comes from that. Yes, long-winded answer, but to your question, yes. I feel like now at least I'm able to prioritize, okay, how do I even want to focus and why something is important and the rest can just wait. Yes.
That completely resonates with me, especially as of late. And I'm sure there's others out there where that resonates with them too, is it's just like an athlete. They have a lot of pressure on them. And if they're freaking out, the performance is going to struggle. If they're being the observer and watching what's going on, they're not attached to it. They're able to react and authentically move through whatever it is they're supposed to do and perform.
Okay.
It makes it much easier. So the emotional aspect of it can mess us up.
Yes.
Clarity and prioritization, absolutely. So very good point on that. And you became a yoga instructor 4 years ago and have since you started teaching teens and adults yoga. What was it about the yoga that resonated for you that led you to start with the teaching part of this?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the point, I secretly wanted to be a teacher, right? So I think at work, when the whole coaching and mentoring just organically happened, that I think from yoga perspective, like when I did my certification, again, to be honest, my intention at that point was not really teaching. It was more because I wanted to understand what I was doing in my classes. So that really what piqued my interest to even go the certification path. And when I went through my certification, there was the last part of that where I had to take few free community classes. And that's really when I just told a few friends, hey, you want to come in, just drop by, attend the classes. And so they attended the classes. And I think after that, they actually came and told me, gosh, if you're actually going to teach, we would love to attend. And I was like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. But I said, okay, maybe. And that's really how it all began. And gosh, it was like, what, 3, 4 people, I think, is when I just basically started, just a few friends. I said, all right, let's just do maybe a few virtual classes. Let's see how this thing goes. And honestly, that's how it began. And then it was really word of mouth from there. And at a point, like, oh gosh, I think I had like over 50 students and I had to split up multiple classes. And I had to do this on the weekend because, again, I have a full time job and I also had younger kids. This was even like 4 years ago. And so I had to juggle all of it. But at the same time, I actually enjoyed doing it so much that I just didn't feel like I wanted to wean back. So it was this conflict of sorts is okay, how do you do it? This and that. But anyhow, I think really that's how it all just worked out from a yoga teaching perspective. And yeah, what really resonated, again, I would just say for me, especially just the growth mindset of being out there. That was hard. Honestly, yes, I know I always wanted to be a teacher and all of it. But when it came to teaching yoga and that first class, when I had to actually go teach, oh my gosh, yes, the imposter syndrome really kicked me hard because I was like, don't know how I'm going to do this. And can I do this? So many questions just raising through my head. But I think that was really just a great way for me to get myself out there and do something and just be vulnerable, learn, get feedback, see how it goes, whether they like it or not, but learn from it. And fast forward, I think that's really helped me just from a personal development as well as a person.
And you're being authentic. People can relate to that. And if you don't have the expectations and it beautifully set up because you just allowed it to unfold the way it was supposed to instead of trying to go into it with the purposes of making money. You
Correct.
went into it with the purpose to help yourself and hey, I think others can benefit from this. And they did. And you just attracted that same vibrational frequency from other people. That's amazing. And I'm sure that enhanced and validated you doing this because how many people showed up and now you're like, wow, I have 2 classes or 3 classes I have to separate and I have to do the weekends. Not only were you helping yourself with work stuff, but you were helping others and then in turn gives to you too, right?
Yes, I think just going through this teaching journey, I've just found so much fulfillment when someone even just sends me a note. It's just as small as just a text, right? But they said, oh, I felt awesome. It's as simple as that. But then that just made me feel like, wow, I could actually influence somebody's life, right? Even if that hour meant something to them, to me, that was exciting. That was fulfilling. And I didn't think I really found that as much in work. Yeah, I find it because obviously you get promoted, you go through all of that as well in work. But like you said earlier, I think the creative fulfillment, I think it was yoga and meditation is at least how I found my source.
And that's wonderful. It's only going to enhance your professional endeavors
Yes,
as well because you have that to
exactly.
bring
They
to the
connect.
table. Yeah.
Yes, they absolutely connect to each other. Yes.
And so yoga often it emphasizes the different balance poses, right? I can't do them all.
Oh, I'm still trying.
Yeah, trying to, especially the upper body, when you're putting all the pressure on your upper body, it's work in progress. And I don't do yoga every day. I do different types of exercises. I admire you for that. They help you focus and reconnect to self. Can you share how your practice of yoga has helped you with balancing your own life and managing stress? You touched on this a little bit, but do you want to expand on that?
Sure, absolutely. Just when you think about the word yoga, it comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, which means union of the mind, body, spirit, and spirit consciousness. And typically, when we think about balance for most people, physical balance. But the one thing I learned is when I went to yoga classes was when we were in those balance poses, for example, a tree pose, they would say, hey, also focus on a object that's stationary or a point or a gaze or a focus that's not moving. So it actually helps you focus. And that's when I realized it wasn't just the physical aspect when I was actually doing that pose. It was also the mental focus that I needed to actually do that pose. And that was so true because if I would do the tree pose when I was looking at somebody who was moving around or falling down, I would fall down. It was just so interesting. And when I looked at just some spot on the wall or something and I did it, which was not moving, it was just fine. So that's when I think I realized slowly that there's the physical and there's the mental that comes into the balance pose when you think about it in yoga. And I think both of them super important. And when I think about just how it has helped me, I would say, oh boy, a lot. But I would say it's a tremendous tool just to help mindfully slow down on days where things are just back to back. There are times when I've been in like meetings 8 hours a day. It's like back to back. And I feel, oh my gosh, I just need a tool where I could just sit there and just let all of that stress just unwind, where I don't have to think about all of that. And so for me, really, yoga and meditation have been those tools. Even if that would just mean I would take half an hour, I would even take 10 minutes, just do some pranayama, just do some breath work. I really just felt that solace and that peace where I could really disconnect from that craziness all day. Or it could just be a work day, or it could just be some stressful family situation. There's been so many of those days. And it was also just silly things like I used to be upset when my kids would not eat their lunch and bring their lunchbox, and I would just go crazy and scream at them and all of that. But again, now because of the maturity of the experience, when I think about it, oh my gosh, that was so silly. Like I wasted my energy on something didn't even matter when I think about the bigger picture now. Like I just dropped off one kid to college and I'm just like, wow, where did that time go? How did I even spend my time and energy? Yeah, I just feel like yoga has helped me just balance life and just stress, whether that's work, family, kids, just everything.
And that's so important. So you're talking about how that's helping you with the yoga poses. It was interesting because you're talking about looking at a stationary object versus a moving object. It's like visualization and how that impacts someone and where you look. I'm just a couple of things popped into my head. If you were like, if you're skiing or snowboarding, and the direction you look is the direction you go, right? Even if you don't want to hit the object, if you look
Yes.
there, that's the direction you go. So when you're focusing with yoga, it's like you're looking at that one thing like a mantra that you hear in your mind. And so it can almost put you into a transcendental state, I would imagine. The same thing, whether it's a sound or a visual that you're focusing on and nothing else. Is that the experience that you get?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes. And same thing with like even meditation. And again, that's something that happens over practice, right? Because I know even yesterday, somebody at work was like, oh my gosh, how do you meditate? Because when I close my eyes, I go crazy. And I'm like, that's how we all start because we all go crazy because it's just monkey mind. We all have 10,000 thoughts that probably pop up. And I think that's really what meditation is supposed to help you with. It's not like just saying, shut down the thoughts, but how do you just observe them? And it's okay. We're all human. We're going to have thoughts. I wish we get to a point where it just never have to think, but it's just natural. So you go through that, but then how do you not just get tangled in those thoughts? I think is really what you learn over time and just by practice.
I've tried all kinds of meditation. I've tried sound meditation, which helped a little bit. I tried regular types of meditation. And when I can hear my heart beating or my own breathing, it's distracting and then it creates the thoughts. However, I started doing transcendental meditation in 2021. And you have a one word mantra that you focus on with the yoga. And so, yeah, of course, you have those thoughts initially, but then your mind goes into a transcendental state. And you have no thoughts. There's nothingness, which is everything. It's wholeness with nothingness. I know that's counterintuitive, but
Um,
it's real. And then you can just feel that higher frequency, that higher vibration. It's all very blissful. But then the thoughts come back through. It's like a squirrel rolling in the room. You're like, hey, how you doing? And then you go back to the one word mantra and that pulls you back into the state. It's that entire cycle or process which releases the stress from the body and the mind that's necessary. It's the whole process that you're doing is the meditative process. I think to your point.
Absolutely. I think, again, like I said, I think it's a journey, right? When you tell
Right.
people meditate, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even sit like for more than a minute. Like my eyes closed and I'm going crazy with my thoughts. And I think that's how it starts. I still remember starting with 2 minutes and oh my gosh, I don't know if I can ever do this. But now there are times where it's past 30 minutes and I actually have to get to work. I'm just like lost in my time. So yeah, I think again, it's one of those things you got to experience it. You have to do it to experience it and actually relate to it.
Totally agree. It's interesting. I was looking over some of your information, and in addition to pursuing the certifications in health coaching and yoga, you're actually focused in on trauma informed yoga, which I think is extremely important, especially today. I'm not totally familiar with that. So, how do you integrate these practices into your coaching and teaching, and what benefits do they offer to clients? Also, what is trauma informed yoga?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When you just think about journey to wholeness or holistic wellness, it's about again the mind, the body. There's also the emotions and the spirit. And when it comes specifically to like trauma, so if the body doesn't have an opportunity to just process and release some of those experiences, then illness, disease, and all these other health conditions manifest. So, our bodies, as we all know, you have to heal from the stress we've experienced when you're recovering from trauma. And they're all intricately connected. Like you have trauma with the mind, you have that also impacts the body. So, it's like the trauma informed yoga, or the trauma sensitive yoga is designed so it doesn't take you back to the source of your pain, but instead, the purpose is so you become more aware of what's going on in your body. Because once you tap into that, you can actually work on releasing those built up emotions and the stress. Because really, people have gone through trauma, they want to feel safe, they want to feel grounded and empowered. So, with trauma sensitive yoga, really the objective is how do you create that safe space for people so they recognize their physical and their emotional discomfort during their yoga practice and just go through that bodily emotion, just let it be. Because there are times I've heard, again, I haven't, like I said, I'm just going through this certification, but I know some friends who are trauma and from like yoga teachers, and they worked with people in prisons. They worked with people who've gone through other trauma in life. And they've told me that when they're doing their poses, a lot of them, they're just like tears flowing out. They're just expressing emotions. And I think that's really what trauma informed yoga as a practitioner, that's what basically we learn is how do you help them release those emotions and that pain that is in whichever part of their body. So I think it's really interesting as I'm just going through the coaching and the training, just learning about a lot of this. And I'm super excited about how I can actually take that to action and actually help people who, experiencing this. And how do I really help them just release their own pain? So that's really what trauma informed yoga is. And hopefully I'm looking forward to seeing myself really go help people who are experiencing and make a difference in their life. But yeah, that's really the trauma part of it. I think your other part of the question was also on health coaching, right? I'm currently doing the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. So they have a health coach training certification, which is what I'm currently doing. And I will graduate in January. But I guess I already have my official certification to actually work with patients and go through the health coaching. And I would say what I'm really, at least the first thing I was super excited, what I learned about was just concepts like bio individuality, primary, secondary foods. Those were some concepts I had no idea about, right? So when we think about holistic wellness, there is just much more than just exercise or eating the right food. But there's all these other primary foods that I don't think most of us know, but super important for us to think about. And some of those are relationships, there's career, there is just financial security, right? It's like that independence. And then there is movement, yes, which is fitness. And there's spirituality. How do you connect with something that's a higher source of power beyond ourselves? So that's been like super exciting for me, just going through this health coach training where I'm just learning all of these concepts, which I've never heard before. And yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting for me to take both of these to action very soon when I basically complete this certification and actually add value to people's lives.
This is a really important area of focus right now, which is trauma, PTSD, stress. We're seeing more of that today than ever before. And you bring up a good point to create a safe space for people to be able to go back in time without fixating on it. I think a lot of people, when they're going through therapy, for example, they almost have anxiety with having to bring up the past and digging through that grave, so to speak, the bones, all of those things, which brings those old feelings back up to the surface and almost recreates another wound. I think what you're saying is process of yoga, it allows a person to revisit those things, but not to that degree where they can be the observer and not in the middle of it again, reliving it again. And the process of tuning in with what the body needs because they're connected with self, which is really important when we're dealing with the mind, but essential also for the physiology with relieving the energy out of the physical body so it doesn't create blockages. Those blockages actually are what create illness. So with Ayurveda, we call them the channels or shraddhas. When we block the shraddhas, we create what we call an accumulation of toxins in the body. I haven't heard anyone explain it to this degree. And I think with the trauma informed coaching and trauma informed yoga and trauma informed psychology, I interviewed a therapist a while back who specializes in that. I can see someone who practices yoga and teaches that, and someone who deals with more of the emotional part of the person, possibly working together and collaborating on helping a
Yeah.
patient or client.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's so much opportunity in the space because just people, even that I've spoken to, they will experience some sort of trauma at some point in their life. They may just not talk about it, but I definitely feel a lot of people have just gone through something and maybe that's just something that's still in there and they've not had that opportunity to release it and let it go. I feel like there's a lot of power in just trauma informed yoga and how it can actually benefit and help people just go through that process.
Gosh, you're motivating me to want to try this.
Yes, I know. I know. It's just super fascinating because I'm just like
Yeah.
going through it and I'm like, wow, oh, wow. Those are some things like I would have never known, I would have never heard. And even just some of the yoga poses that we do, which is, hey, this pose may not actually work for somebody who's gone through trauma because You want to actually let them release things. You don't want to let them just bring them back again. So it's a very interesting, just a very different way of teaching is how I'll put that.
Oh. And that leads into mindfulness and meditation. We already touched on meditation. So do you want to just briefly expand on the meditation and how that's helped also?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think sometimes I would just say, simply put, there are times I just needed to befriend my inner voice. Each time I felt like I was maybe anxious, I was angry or anxiety, fear. And I always knew I needed a way to channel that energy to something better. And maybe until I actually found meditation as a tool, and that's when things changed. I actually used to do journaling because I remember a friend telling me, "Oh, when you're going through all of this, just write it down. Like that'll probably help you." And interestingly, that's how I actually started. I used to just sit there. I used to just write. I didn't even know what I was writing, but I was just literally writing everything I felt because nobody else had to read it. And I didn't have to read it myself again. I just had to just say my mind out. And that's literally how it started. But then I think when I explored meditation, again, I just felt, again, over time, this is not a magical thing, even meditation. I know it's daunting for a lot of people, but I think people should really give it a try and break it down. The first day, you can't sit for 20 minutes. You can't sit maybe even for 5 minutes for some of them, but you have to break it down so that you actually go through that process. Because for me, eventually, like now, that's the tool. Meditation just helps me be more self aware. Even when I feel like I'm going through an emotion, let's say fear or anxiety, I'm able to just instantly say, okay, this emotional reaction is coming up. So I need to just take a few moments and release that emotion. So I feel even coming to that level of maturity and just being even self aware, I think it's all just credit to meditation, at least for me. That's really how it's worked. And even at work, like I feel it's helped me just being more productive. There are times when people would just talk for hours and I'm like, okay, let's just come back to what we need to do. Here's what we need to deliver. Here's the action items. This is what we need to go. So basically, even reducing redundancy in work. I've been always questioning, like, why do we have 3 meetings? We just need one meeting and we just need very focused questions and get them done. So I've always just felt I could draw parallels, like just go into this meditation practice, being more self aware, being more focused. And your earlier question about prioritization, everything, I just felt like meditation has been a huge beneficial tool.
That changed my life and highly recommend people look into. And like we reflected on earlier, what brings us to trying these different modalities to help kind of balance is usually challenges. With detachment, especially with what's going on in the world, if we're detached with how we feel, we're not able to tend to our body and our physiology and our mind and what it needs. With the challenges of detachment and difficulty with staying present, how do you navigate these challenges? And what strategies would you find most effective for being present in the moment?
Yeah, again, like I said, monkey mind. So it is so hard just for me to tell anybody, just sit there, just close your eyes. That's just probably not going to work for most people. I think that's where you start the journey. And I think for me, at least what worked initially with meditation or even sitting for longer periods of time was bringing the focus to breath. There's so many different types of breathing to go and even look up. And I'm sure there are YouTube videos, there's all kinds of videos on just even how to breathe. But I feel like that's really what has helped me, even as a starting point, with just breath and the ability to sit down with our own body, with our own minds. And then slowly, as you get better at practice, you can eventually just sit there and meditate, whether that's on your guru, whether that's, I don't know, on a source, whether that's on something else. And you're not in that monkey mind state. Those thoughts don't even bother you. And maybe they may just pass, but they just pass. I probably don't even remember that thought after my 30 minutes of meditation because those thoughts have just passed. I never just stopped to think about any of it because I just let them pass. So again, I feel like, where do you start? I would say just starting even with breath as a form of meditation practice, just sitting down even for 10 minutes a day is probably a starting point, and then working through it. And I think, coming to your point about detachment, I know this is like a very deep topic, right? Because it's not something that's just easily explainable. I would say even gurus for years, like even in just the Indian spirituality world, it's taken years for people to even understand that concept of detachment. And basically, the Hindu scripture, which I'm not sure if you've heard about, but basically Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, the epic. And in that, Lord Krishna talks a lot about detachment. And again, really summarizing high level what he's mentioned in it is just focus on your actions, focus on what you can do, and don't worry about the results. And I feel like today, we're all doing the opposite. It's always about, here's the goal, this is the race, I need to get here. And we don't really focus on, are we putting the best of our efforts? Are we putting all of that hard work? Are we putting all of that discipline? Are we doing our 100% right now instead of focusing on the end goal? But that was really the essence of what Lord Krishna said, is just do your dharma, do your duty. Don't worry about what the result is going to be. And I just love that. I know it's hard to practice, but I feel like, again, because you talked about detachment, that I think we really have to realize that we are the masters of our emotions, our desires and attachments. And detachment is about not really having, it's not just saying, oh, I have no emotions or desires and running away from things, but it actually means that we have control over our emotions and our actions, and we know how to manage them. To me, I think truly that's what it is. It's not just saying, oh, I'm just done with everything, I'm just going to detach and I'm not going to worry about any of it. Not how it's going to work practically for any of us. So I think it's really that ability to focus on what you can do and your actions, and also the ability to manage your own emotions and really be self-aware. Again, all of this connects back to that practice of meditation, which helps you detach, which helps you not get attached when things don't go the way you want it and things don't happen. To me, it's really how I think about detachment. It's really the art of letting go, but not just letting go of things just for the sake of it. But then, and it's interesting, I actually heard this, I think it was from Jay Shetty. I don't know if Jay Shetty, he's one of those famous, one of those philosophers. I don't know, he's really big on social media. I know he's written a book as well. And recently I heard something where he said, detachment doesn't mean you own nothing. It means nothing owns you. And I thought that was very powerful. It's not just saying, oh, I don't own anything, so I'm detached. But it's actually not letting something else own you, because how to control and take charge of your own emotions and be self-aware of what you're doing. So I just thought that was really profound.
It is profound. And so detachment is not being attached to an outcome, because the outcome can change. We're in a dynamic world, and it can change tomorrow. It can change in 2 seconds. It can change a year from now. And that's easier said than done.
Of course.
Even knowing that answer and knowing some of the tools, you're going down a path and all of a sudden there's a wrench that's thrown into that. It's okay. How do I regroup now that I had this thrown into the mix? I agree with you. And also going back to the Vedic literature, which is, in my opinion, amazing. It's just so full of knowledge. I highly recommend folks, and I can share a link to a couple of sources at least that I use, because I do read it as well. Like a deep, what is it? How do you say that?
I would.
Which is one of many. And then we have also the Rig Veda, right?
Yeah.
We have there's 4 main Vedic texts, and they focus on health and wellness and other aspects of life. But the detachment part of it is empowering. Like you said, it's counterintuitive because you're releasing control of the mind to gain empowerment through the here and now.
Yep.
And there's
You
only
nailed it.
the here and now. The past is gone. It hasn't happened yet. There's only the here and now. And when you're in the here and now, that is being detached, not detached in a bad way, but not being attached to something, essentially. So it's essentially watching a movie versus being in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Being,
Yes.
being the observer.
Observe. Yeah, exactly. You're just observing. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think with all of the politics stuff going on in the world, it's like, just get your popcorn out.
Yeah.
Just watch it. You don't have to
Yes.
be in the middle of it. It's not your reality. You don't want it to be. Just like you're saying, you have the ability to control your own thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being self-aware, right? I think is the most
Absolutely.
important thing. I know it's as simple to say, be self-aware. And we all think, oh, we are, but oh, we're not. At least I wasn't. And it's taken me years to even know that I actually don't know that. So it's even just that realization, I think it's taken a long time.
Or even forgetting. If you get something can trigger that where you're going into the mind is creating the story instead of sometimes I'll catch myself too and I'll go, there it is. There it is. But that's still self-awareness.
Exactly.
It's still a higher state of consciousness.
Yes.
No one is going to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And I think putting that focus on trying to be that perfection is also going to cause issues too. Is you're human, you're going to do the best you can, and we're all going to have those moments. That's just life. We have the dynamicism around us that brings those waves in.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're just trying to do our best with what we can in this
Yeah.
lifetime. We're all going to just deal with our own journeys and path, but we can at least do the right things and hopefully impact lives and do something good.
Absolutely. So you've raised $1,000 with the local nonprofits, engaging in community and also charity. And charity can be huge for your own soul, your own essence and the consciousness, the giving aspect of it. I think most people receive more when they give than they receive, I think, in the end. How has engaging in the charitable work and the community service influence your sense of purpose?
That's a really good question. In one of my leadership trainings, I remember one of the questions that was asked was, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And I never really thought about that at all. And since then, that question's just stuck in my head. And the more I got into like yoga teaching and like the coaching and all of this, I think it all just tied back to the same question that kept haunting me, which was, what is it that I really want to leave behind? And to me, I think I found the answer, which is, when I find, like I said, even a simple text, right? When somebody attends a class and they say, hey, I felt good. Or just the other way I did this was just even with my girls when they were way younger, I would take them. It was a Thanksgiving family tradition where I used to tell them we need to donate, like we need to give something during Thanksgiving. So we made that a cultural family kind of an event. And so they would come shopping with me where we would buy things for a homeless shelter or we would go drop off things at a shelter. And so for me, just even dropping off a meal or when I would volunteer or raise money, and when I would just see, the smile on the faces, whether it was just young kids or it was the women in the shelter, I just found like that sense of fulfillment. I felt like I actually made a difference in somebody's life. And I don't know how words can explain that, but I feel again that's something that needs to be experienced because the more I did that, the better I felt. Honestly, it was like this just cycle. And I also strongly believe in just doing good karma because the universe is listening. And when you put things out there, when you actually do good things, it somehow just comes back to you. And you will never know when, but it actually comes back to you. And trust me, I've always felt that happen. Yes, people may think I'm crazy, but I've always felt when good things used to actually happen, I used to say, you never know why that even happened. And sometimes it's like a miracle. It's a coincidence. I don't even know how it happened. But then I sit there and think, okay, maybe I did something good and somebody just unknown is actually helping me. I strongly believe in that. And for me, it's just, yeah, it's just charity, helping others, community service. I've always just really enjoyed those moments. And I've also ensured that My girls have done that since they were young. And in the last 6, 7 years, so they have this nonprofit where they've been volunteering over like 1,000 hours, I would say. And they've actually fundraised over $20,000 just to various nonprofits. Yes, like just through baking fundraisers. They've been teaching STEM, they've been teaching coding to girls, to youth. So for me, it's just a value that's just non negotiable, at least for me and my family. Yeah, I think that's just fulfillment for me.
That's extremely inspiring. And absolutely, it's all about energy. So you put that energy out, that's what's going to come back. It's like the infinity sign.
Exactly.
It's just how being seen.
What goes around comes around. There's like that saying.
That's right. Yeah. So looking back at your journey from technology and your profession, now we're reflecting back. So you've learned a lot of lessons you within yourself and made some changes which impacted not only your personal but your professional life. Looking back on your journey from technology professional to the yoga instructor and now life coach, what lessons have you learned about balancing your career and personal wellness?
Oh, wow. I think it's the best thing I ever did in my life when I think back, because I still remember those days when I used to think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can balance other things when I'm working and I'm raising kids. And can I still have my own hobby? Can I still go do, something that I actually like? Because, like I said, when I went to yoga and I started really enjoying it, I think it was, oh boy, just investing in self care, being selfish about just me, especially, like I said, coming from a culture, right, where that wasn't very common. It was all about, yeah, the women would just raise kids, you manage home, and you do that. That was awesome. It was really not much about self care. You got to think about yourself, put yourself first. It's like what they tell us when you get on a plane, put your mask first before you actually help others. But I don't know. That was never the thought process, at least in the previous generation, or even when I was just a child being raised. I never saw that happen. I never saw women care for themselves or pause to even think about themselves. So I think I came from that place. And fortunately, I think I had a lot of mentors along the way. And I came here when I was 19. I was definitely very young. And I think I saw a lot of people. I just learned from them. And I said, why can't I do that? Like, why couldn't I be different? Why couldn't I break those norms, which I just didn't think were right? And so for me, I think luckily I had great support from my spouse, from my girls. I actually could go to yoga certification training. Even that, like I was gone one evening a week and I was gone like all Saturday. So it still took quite a bit of juggling. My kids were also younger, but I think luckily for me, I had that support system because unfortunately we don't have parents here. We don't have grandparents. They're all so far away. So just having at least that support system here, I think really helped me. And really some of the key lessons that stood out for me is experiment and immerse yourself with activities just outside of work. It's okay to try things. It's okay to go do some hobbies and see if you're actually good at something. And it works or it doesn't work out, but at least you learned something at the end of it. So you at least enjoy that process of learning. So for me, I think just prioritizing self care equally as career growth, I think was probably the most awesome thing that I actually did. But I think back and reflect on it.
Lots of growth through that process. Learn a lot about the inner strength. So, as you continue to expand your expertise and impact, what are your future goals for your coaching practice and also with community involvement?
Absolutely. I think I really have a vision to empower individuals to really find their inner compass and discover their mind body connection, because I think it's so important. And when I just talk to so many people, I don't think people even realize that there's this concept of holistic wellness. You got to think beyond just going to a gym or just exercising. That's not just one thing that's just going to help you. You need other checks and balances in your life. So for me, I think that's really my vision. And I'm also working with a few nonprofits where I really want to bring more wellness and mindfulness in the community and just make it accessible to everyone, regardless of their abilities, I think is really what I'm looking forward to. And now with just going to this health coach training and the trauma informed piece of it, I actually recently just did a Reiki energy healing training. So I'm really excited to just bring that. It's the simplest way I think about it is a toolkit to help individuals really live their life more holistically and really understand there is more than one thing in their life equation.
Absolutely. Focusing on the mind, because we know that 90% plus of our illnesses start with the mind first and the imbalance. It's really key. So, what type of I guess if you had a message to share with the audience, people who are listening, what message or piece of advice would you like to leave with the listeners about finding balance, purpose, and fulfillment in their own life?
Sure. I would really love to just conclude by saying a journey to holistic wellness is a journey. It's not a destination. So it is really critical to actually enjoy the ride, enjoy the process of learning and self-discovery. And again, one of my career mentors used to always tell me after promotion was just pause and take the time to smell the roses, because we're so human. We're just wired that way. You get a promotion, you're already thinking about the next thing. We never really pause to actually reflect and even enjoy those small moments. And I think that's so important. I just think about it even with children. Now, when I drop off my kid at college, I'm like, wow, did I actually pause and enjoy those small moments? Because they're gone too fast. I just smell the roses, I think, is something that's just stuck with me. But I think it's super important for each of us to really just slow down and practicing mindfulness, meditation. I think all of those are really tools to help us. And even yoga, because to me, really yoga is the physical aspect, which is what most people think about. But if you actually go back all the way to the roots of Patanjali, the founder of yoga, you'll actually realize there's 8 limbs of yoga, as he calls it. So how people here now just think about, oh, yoga is just the physical awesome poses you do. No, there's a lot more to it. So really just that practice, being aware, enjoying that moment, and practicing tools like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, I just think is so important. If anybody takes anything away from this today, I would say if you've never done it, just explore it, start somewhere. Just start with even just breathing exercises for 10 minutes a day. Maybe that's as simple as where you start. And honestly, there's no one size that fits everybody when it comes to advice. But I really think, as I mentioned before, you need to focus on those primary and those secondary foods in every phase of your journey. And that's all going to vary as you go through different phases of life. So really listen to the body and mind. And the closer I feel you connect with the mind and body, the harder it gets for you to stray away from it.
Can you list those primary and secondary foods again?
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary, I would say, is relationships, career, spirituality, movement. Think about secondary foods. It's really what's on your plate. So basically all the rainbow colors, you're eating healthy, you're eating organic, you're eating hopefully more farm fresh produce. And simplistically, if you think about it, primary foods are what's off your plate. Secondary is what's on your plate. But just note the priority, right? Primary foods is what's off your plate, which means there's such a bigger impact of all those other things beyond just what you're eating on your plate. Because if you're in a toxic relationship, you're in a toxic, job, doesn't matter. You could eat all the greens all day. But honestly, I don't know if that's going to serve and nourish your soul. So I really think about it's like soul food. There's the soul food. There is just the food on your plate. And I think they're equally important. And nourishing your soul is, I would say, even more important than just what you just put on your plate. But it's that balance. How do you find that balance? I think it's super important. So that's what I would leave really the audience with, is even just an understanding that there is more to just the food on your plate. And if there's anything you get out of this session today, is at least start with 5 minutes of focus on breaths and just practicing meditation.
So essentially, if there is a disruption in the soul food, it is going to hinder one's ability to effectively absorb the nutrients in the food on the plate.
Absolutely. Because I think it's like yin yang. They're all related. So you can't just have one or the other. You need to have both, but you need to have both in balance. There's always that moderation. And I think it's important for people to at least recognize and realize that this concept exists. And you should think about your wellness as holistic wholeness.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I learned a ton.
Thank you so
Really
much.
Awesome. And I'd like for you to share with the audience, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's Coach with Shal. And my website is also coachwithshal.com. And I would love to have a conversation. If anyone is looking for help, or you're just stuck in life, or you don't know where you are, you're just trying to discover, you don't know what yoga is, you don't know what meditation is, feel free to send me a note. I'm more than happy to just have a conversation, at least help you and at least get you started.
And we will add any of her links to social media, her website, at the end of the podcast post. In addition to that, any resources out of the discussion of the podcast, we will also link those at the bottom of the podcast as well. So thank you so much for being here today. It's total gratitude going towards you. You're full of light and shared a lot of knowledge.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tristan. I learned so much from you because you were just sharing so many tidbits. And I was like, wow, yes, you summarized that so well. And that was really simple to understand for anyone who's probably never heard of some of these terms. So I really appreciate your time as well. And I learned a lot. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody. There have been updates to Shalini's contact information since we've recorded the podcast. Please see mindspacejourney.org for her website, and also her Instagram handle has changed as well. If you see the links below at the end of the description of the podcast, you will be able to find her easily on her website, her YouTube channel, and her Instagram handle. Thank you so much. As we wrap up this insightful conversation, it's clear that our guest's journey is a powerful testament to the integration of professional expertise and personal passion. Her story underscores the importance of finding balance and purpose, not just in our careers, but in every facet of our lives. Whether navigating the complexities of high-pressure career or embracing the calm of yoga practice, she demonstrates that true fulfillment comes within aligning our actions with our deepest desires and values. To everyone listening, take her journey as an inspiration to seek your own balance and purpose. Remember, the path to wellness is a journey, not a destination. Embrace the process, celebrate the small moments, and always find time to connect with your inner self. By doing so, you create a life rich in meaning, resilience, and joy. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. We are interested in feedback on our episodes and learning what topics you may be interested in for future episodes. Please follow us on Instagram, Your Health is Wealth Podcast. Also, our website, yourhealthiswealth.com, and is spelled with a Z instead of an S, for yourhealthiswealth.com. The link to the website is also found on the Instagram bio as well. On our website, we list the episodes, and there is an online form where you can fill it out, share your feedback, ask questions, share input on future topics, and also contact us if you're interested in being featured on the podcast. Topic scope is related to health and wellness. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today, and look forward to more. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.